help us make sense of these numbers as we see them. Capri Cafaro is a political commentator and a former Ohio state Democratic leader. She joins us now live from Ohio, in fact. Capri, thank you once again for joining us here in South Africa on the AM Report. You've become a great friend of the show as we've tried to make sense of the US debates and now the election results as well. Your state, Ohio, accounting for 18 votes in the Electoral College, one of the largest swing states in the Midwest. How are you feeling there today?
I will tell you, I am absolutely floored right now. I mean, Donald Trump won the state of Ohio by almost 9 points 4 years ago, and I heard your panel talking a little bit about Ohio just a few minutes ago. This is a very different type of situation, and I'm looking at the map right now. We have roughly 60% of the vote in, a little over 60% of the vote in the state of Ohio. Joe Biden is leading narrowly, almost 51 basically to 48%. I would have never predicted this. This really does mean that early voting has strongly trended towards Democrats, and that Donald Trump's supporters are much louder than I think than Joe Biden's folks, which really I guess have been more of the silent majority. Now, they're still too close to call, in my opinion. I am not calling the state of Ohio by any means for Joe Biden, but I did not think it was going to be competitive. In Mahoning County, which is the county south of mine, where this is a very, very important territory for Donald Trump. He managed to win these counties, and be very competitive in areas where non-college educated whites really helped sway the state of Ohio 4 years ago for Donald Trump. We are not seeing that same tale necessarily this time around. We're also seeing Joe Biden perform very well in the suburbs. We have a couple of competitive House races for Congress as well as in the state legislature. So Ohio may be the surprise of the evening, and Donald Trump absolutely needs it to win. Joe Biden does not.
So as we try to make sense of Ohio, Capri, you talk about the counties, and we're seeing a lot of the reporting focusing on the counties and how they are informing the decisions that we're seeing coming in from the state as a whole. What are some of the issues in the counties that would have helped either candidate here?
Well, let me start with Mahoning County, for example, in the city of Youngstown, which is immediately south of where I'm currently at right now. That is a county where Hillary Clinton won literally by a fraction of a percentage point, 49.8% 4 years ago. Any Democrat needs to really run up the tally in Mahoning County, which has been reliably Democratic for generations. Predominantly because of union workers and with some minority African-American population as well. Right now, Joe Biden is leading 60% to 40% in Mahoning County. We're seeing him tied in the suburbs of Lake County out on the east side of Cleveland, 49%. That is a good thing. He is leading it to the west of Cleveland in Lorain County, Wood County, and Erie County. Those are places that have been swing counties previously. North of Columbus, he's been competing as well in those suburbs outside of Columbus. So, for Joe Biden to be this strong in these areas, I mean, he certainly needs to run up the total in the big cities of Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, which he is doing right now, but he's also staying competitive in northeastern Ohio, which pretty reliably went for Donald Trump 4 years ago. And that may give us a little bit of an indication of how he may perform in western Pennsylvania as well. I'm 9 miles from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which seems to get all the attention right now. I think it's also important to say that Joe Biden has only been to the state of Ohio twice. Twice since the conventions, which is unheard of for a Democratic candidate.
I mean, I'm looking at the overall numbers, Capri, for Ohio, 50.7% to Joe Biden. I just see it's updated now to 51.7%, 47.6% for Trump. I mean, if you look at the vote numbers themselves, the votes, that comes to 1,894,000 for Biden, 1,761,000. These are not major differences. You can't say that this is going to be a landslide.
No, absolutely not. And this is why I'm hesitant to say anything. But again, you have to look at how much is reporting at this point and where we're getting the vote tallies in. And I'm having a little. I need to get into the individual counties to see how many precincts are reporting per county, which would give me a little bit of a better idea.
Yeah.
But right now, it definitely seems that, again, particularly if you compare it to 4 years ago, Joe Biden is doing much better than Hillary Clinton. At this point in the night, Ohio was already called for Donald Trump. And so I think it really shows just, frankly, how divided ultimately the state of Ohio is. And I think it really, to me, this comes down to the fact that I think that some non-college educated whites feel that they've been abandoned by Donald Trump because we've lost jobs in Ohio. We've lost manufacturing at a time where he said, don't move away. We're going to keep the auto industry. We lost our General Motors plant here in the state of Ohio, right in my backyard. And then I think suburban women who may have not liked Hillary Clinton 4 years ago, and they seem to, at least my extrapolation from this, is that suburban women who took that chance on Donald Trump 4 years ago, hoping that he might clean up his act, so to speak, with his personality and his tweets and become more presidential, have been very disappointed in his behavior, his treatment of the COVID-19 pandemic and a whole host of other things. And so I think what we might be seeing is a lot of split households, myself included.
Yeah.
the man is voting for Donald Trump and the woman is voting for Joe Biden. So.
I mean, in Ohio, you talked about, the various issues that would have affected Trump in your state. COVID-19, how much of a swinger in terms of voting is that in Ohio and Trump's handling of it?
Well, it's hard to say, I think, because frankly, in Ohio, a lot of people, are not really looking as much to Donald Trump as they are to our governor. And so it's hard sometimes, I think, to really pull those two things apart. But I do think that from a general standpoint, maybe not how Donald Trump is impacting Ohio's handling of COVID, but just in general how he's been handling the pandemic nationally, the attitude that he's taken to science, the way that he has interfaced with the task force and infectious disease experts, how he handled his own COVID diagnosis, being positive and being sick. Those things may not directly impact Ohio, but they do inform voters' views on the competency of the president and the competency to handle a crisis. And I think in that regard, while they may not blame him for how things are being handled in Ohio, because we've, generally speaking, done a decent job. By the way, we just got a new update. We are now at 49.14 to 49.57 for Donald Trump in Ohio.
Yeah, I just saw that as well. Capri, before we let you go, I want to start talking about, what we will see for the next 4 years if Trump stays in power versus what we will see around the country over the next 4 years should Biden become president. I'm thinking, just in terms of how Trump has been cozying up to dictators, putting the U.S. against historically countries that have been your allies, the Paris Climate Accord, NATO, etc., etc. Is there a lot that needs to be done should Biden take over, just in terms of the U.S. and its positioning around the world?
Well, I mean, if you're asking me personally, I certainly do think so. And that may be a partisan viewpoint on from where I sit. But, I think a Biden presidency would be significantly different when it comes not necessarily to, quote unquote, foreign policy, but to how we interface, as you mentioned, with our historic allies, those in NATO, those that, basically are traditional democracies versus how we've interfaced with, dictatorial regimes over the last 4 years, how we approach things like multilateral organizations like the World Health Organization, approaches to science like the Climate Accord. So I think we would see a very significant approach. And I would assume, at least, that there are a number of our historic allies that would welcome that change and welcome some level of certainty, from the chaos that they've experienced over the last 4 years.
Capri, great to see you. Thank you so much again for your time joining us here in South Africa to try and understand what's unfolding in the U.S.